In June of 2000, a 48-year-old mechanic from a village in Northern Ireland lined up at the start of the most dangerous motorcycle race on the planet, the Isle of Man TT. A 37-mile course on public roads, weaving between stone walls, houses, and telegraph poles at speeds approaching 200 miles per hour. He had not won the TT Formula One class in 12 years. The press said he was finished. The young riders expected him to retire. He won 3 races that week, and on the final day, he posted the fastest lap of his entire career. His name was Joey Dunlop. And to understand why the motorcycle world still calls him the greatest road racer who ever lived, you need to hear the full story, because it goes way beyond trophies. The beginning. Joey was born on the 25th of February 1952 in a tiny farming community called Cully, just outside the town of Ballymoney in County Antrim, Northern Ireland. His family's cottage barely had running water. Electricity was hit or miss. His dad, Willie, was a mechanic, and from the time Joey could hold a wrench, that was all he cared about. School, not so much. Engines, absolutely. In 1967, when Joey was 15, his brother-in-law, Mervyn Robinson, introduced him to motorcycle racing, and something clicked. 2 years later, at 17, Joey entered his first race at Magaberry on a Triumph Tiger Cub he bought for $50. It was money he had to borrow. Here is the best part. He did not even have a car license. According to his dad, Joey gave his sister's license number to the racing union just to get his race permit. That is commitment. Through the early 1970s, Joey, his brother Jim, Mervyn Robinson, and a local rider named Frank Kennedy formed a group that fans called the Armoy Armada. They were a scrappy squad of road racers from County Antrim who traveled to meets together, while their fans literally chartered a bus from the Railway Tavern in Ballymoney to follow them around the country. It was grassroots racing at its most pure. These riders were not funded by factory teams. They were mechanics and tradesmen who built their own bikes in sheds and garages, loaded them into vans, and went racing on the weekends. The prize money was laughable. The danger was very real. Tragically, both Mervyn Robinson and Frank Kennedy would later lose their lives in road racing accidents. It was a brutal reminder of the price this sport extracts, but Joey kept going. He took his first road race win at the Temple 100 in 1975 in the 500cc class. And from there, the trajectory was straight up, what road racing actually is. But to really appreciate what Joey was doing, you need to understand what road racing actually is. Because this is not MotoGP. This is not a circuit with gravel traps and runoff zones and ambulances parked every 50 meters. Road racing takes place on closed public roads. Regular roads. The kind with stone walls right at the edge of the tarmac, hedges you could reach out and touch at 130 miles per hour, lampposts, telegraph poles, houses, and trees inches from the racing line. And the crown jewel of road racing is the Isle of Man TT. The Snaefell mountain course stretches 37.73 miles through villages, over a mountain and back down again. 219 corners. Riders average over 130 miles per hour. Top speeds push past 200 miles per hour. The course climbs over 1,300 feet as you cross Snaefell Mountain, and the weather can change from sunshine to fog to sideways rain in the time it takes to complete a single lap. Since 1907, the TT has claimed well over 260 lives. Riders, marshals, spectators. To put that in perspective, the entire Formula One car racing championship has seen around 35 driver deaths across its entire history. The TT alone has lost many times that number on a single course. The riders launch from the start line on Glencrutchery Road, one at a time, 10 seconds apart. You are not racing against the guy next to you. You are racing against the clock and the mountain, through villages where the front doors of houses sit feet from the racing line, over Ballaugh Bridge where the bike goes airborne. And every single person who lines up at Douglas knows the odds. Joey Dunlop lined up there for over 2 decades. The dominance. His first TT win came in 1977 at the Jubilee race. But the real dominance started in the early 1980s. Between 1982 and 1986, Joey won 5 consecutive TT Formula One World Championships on Honda machinery. 5 in a row. He was untouchable. And it was not just the TT. Joey racked up 24 wins at the Ulster Grand Prix on the Dundrod circuit, 13 victories at the Northwest 200 through the seaside towns of Portrush, Coleraine, and Portstewart, and 31 wins at the Southern 100 on the Isle of Man's Castletown circuit. 26 Isle of Man TT wins, a record that would stand for 24 years. His relationship with Honda lasted 21 years, and in that time, he captured nearly a quarter of all Honda's TT victories. He raced against some of the best riders of multiple generations: Roger Marshall, Mick Grant, Steve Hislop, Carl Fogarty, Philip McCallan. He outlasted all of them. Not because he was reckless. That is the misconception people have about Joey. His riding style was actually calculated and cautious. He never set his fastest times in practice. He saved everything for the race. He knew where the limit was, and he danced right along the edge of it without ever tipping over. Well, almost never. The boat, the crash, the comeback. In May of 1985, Joey was traveling to the Isle of Man on a fishing boat called the Tornamouna. The boat hit St. Patrick's Rock in Strangford Lough and sank. All 13 people aboard ended up in the water. They were rescued by the Portaferry lifeboat, and divers later recovered Joey's bikes from the seabed. Any sane person would take that as a sign from the universe. Maybe sit this one out. Joey went to the TT, raced, and won 3 races that fortnight: the Formula One, the Junior, and the Senior. His first ever hat trick, soon after nearly drowning. Then came 1989. Easter weekend at Brands Hatch in England. A Belgian rider named Stefan Mertens collided with Joey at high speed. The crash shattered Joey's right wrist and his thigh. Some reports say he also broke his pelvis and lost part of a finger. This was not a minor setback. This was a career-ending injury for anyone with a normal relationship to risk and reward. Doctors told him racing was over. The motorcycle press wrote him off. Joey Dunlop was done. Except he was not. It took him 3 years. 3 years of rehabilitation, of quietly working on bikes in his garage in Ballymoney while the racing world moved on without him. He did not do interviews about his comeback. He did not post updates. He just showed up at the Isle of Man in 1992, entered the ultra-lightweight TT, and won it. He equaled Mike Halewood's all-time record of 14 TT wins, the record that everybody said would never be broken. The following year, he broke it. And when he did, the borough of Ballymoney gave him the freedom of the borough. The kid who could not be bothered with school was now the most decorated road racer in TT history. If you are enjoying this story, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this regularly, and you will not want to miss what is coming next on this channel: The Man Behind the Helmet. And here is where the Joey Dunlop story goes from incredible to something else entirely. Because for all those victories, for all those championships, Joey Dunlop was probably the most humble elite athlete who has ever lived. His nickname in Northern Ireland was Your Man. It is Ulster slang meaning that fellow over there. Not a flashy title, not the King of Speed or the Ballymoney Bullet, just your man. That guy. He raced in a yellow Arai helmet. His first full-face helmet was actually a yellow berry that was so loose he had to stuff extra foam inside it to stop it from wobbling. He wore a red t-shirt under his leathers every single race. He pulled on his left glove and left boot first every time. He claimed he was not superstitious, which is exactly what a superstitious person says. Joey worked on his own machines even when Honda gave him factory bikes. His Honda team manager Barry Simmons once said that Joey was the last privateer. He never let anyone know what he was doing, how the bike was running, or anything about his setup. He just showed up, did the work, and won. There is a famous story about John McGuinness spotting Joey at the Birmingham Motorcycle Show. Joey was a 5-time world champion at the time, and McGuinness found him standing in the general admission queue, waiting to buy a ticket. Joey had no idea that guests of his status went in for free. At a race meeting in Assen, his crew found him asleep under his battered old Ford Capri behind the pits the morning of a race. He had been out at the bar the night before and just crashed out wherever he landed. He ran a pub called Joey's Bar on Seymour Street in Ballymoney. It still stands today. His widow Linda and daughter Joanne run it now with one of his bikes on display and walls covered in memorabilia. Bikers from around the world make pilgrimages to it every year during Northwest 200 Race Week. The Humanitarian. Now here is the part of the story that separates Joey from every other racing legend you have ever heard of. After the 1989 Romanian Revolution, Joey's neighbor's daughter came back from Sosescu's Romania with horrifying stories about the orphanages, children living in conditions that were almost unimaginable. And Joey did something about it. He loaded up his Mercedes van and trailer with food, medicine, clothing, nappies, and toys. Then he drove alone across Europe through border interrogations, sleeping in the cab of his van in freezing temperatures, all the way to Romania to deliver the supplies himself. He did this multiple times throughout the 1990s. He expanded the deliveries to war-torn Bosnia-Herzegovina and Albania, places where actual armed conflict was happening. And he never told anyone. He refused photographers. He did not want press coverage. He just did it because it needed doing. In 1996, Joey received the Aube for his humanitarian work. He already had an MB from 1986 for services to motorcycling. He later said the Aube was the proudest moment of his life. Not any of the 26 TT wins, not the 5 world championships. The Aube for helping orphans in Romania. The Dunlop Dynasty. You cannot tell the Joey Dunlop story without talking about the Dunlop family. Because this is a racing dynasty, unlike anything in motorsport history. And it comes with a level of tragedy that is hard to wrap your head around. Joey's younger brother Robert was a road racing champion in his own right. 15 wins at the Northwest 200, 5 TT victories, 9 Ulster Grand Prix wins, and the 1989 Macau Grand Prix. In 1994, the rear wheel of Robert's Honda collapsed at high speed after the jump at Balaw Bridge on the TT course. The crash shattered bones and caused permanent nerve damage down his right side. Robert had the front brake relocated to a thumb-operated button on the handlebar so he could keep racing. Let that sentence sit with you for a second. He redesigned the controls of his motorcycle around his injuries so he could keep going. On the 15th of May 2008, Robert was practicing for the Northwest 200 when his Honda's engine seized at approximately 160 miles per hour at Mathers Cross. He was thrown over the handlebars and struck by a following rider. He died that evening. He was 47. 2 days later, Robert's 19-year-old son Michael defied the family, defied the doctors, and lined up for the 250cc Northwest 200 race. He won. It remains one of the most emotional moments in the history of road racing. But the family's losses did not stop there. Robert's older son, William, who had won 4 Northwest 200s and 7 Ulster Grand Prix races of his own, was killed during practice for the Skerries 100 in County Dublin on the 7th of July, 2008. He was 32. His youngest daughter, Ella, was born 2 months after his death. 3 Dunlops have been killed in road racing. Between them, the family has stood on the TT podium over 100 times and claimed 60 winning trophies. By the mid-2020s, Michael Dunlop had surpassed even his uncle Joey with 33 TT victories. He was awarded an MB in the 2025 King's Birthday Honors. The family's contribution to road racing is without parallel in any motorsport anywhere in the world. The final season. Now let us go back to the summer of 2000. Because the final chapter of Joey's life contains both his greatest triumph and his most heartbreaking moment. By 2000, Joey was 48. His hair was graying. The new generation of riders, David Jeffries, Michael Rudder, John McGuinness, were faster in practice and younger by 2 decades. Nobody expected Joey to contend for the Formula One TT. He had not won that race in 12 years. The Honda 900cc Fireblade he was given at the start of the season was, in Joey's own words, not up to the job. But Honda UK's Bob McMillan lobbied Japan on Joey's behalf. Honda Racing Corporation responded. They flew in a factory-spec engine from Aaron Slight's World Superbike program, a special swing arm, Showa suspension engineers, and Slight's New Zealand mechanic Simon Greer. The bike was a Honda Veeder SP1 run through Paul Bird's Vimto Demon team. The Formula One race on the 3rd of June was a 4-lap battle over the mountain. Joey led after lap 1 by 0.3 of a second from Rudder. Jeffries, the fastest man in practice, sat in 4th. Over the next 2 laps, Jeffries rode like a man possessed, carving through the field and hauling himself up to 2nd. By the final lap, he was closing hard, 4 seconds back and gaining. The crowd scattered around the 37-mile course was on its feet. This was supposed to be the changing of the guard, the young lion catching the old king. Then, smoke poured from Jeffries' Yamaha exhaust. The engine let go. Jeffries coasted to a halt at Ballaugh Bridge, slamming his fist against the tank in frustration. And Joey, the man everyone had written off, cruised home nearly a minute clear of Rudder with McGuinness in 3rd. When asked about the win, Joey simply said the bike was brought there to do a job, and that was it. He did not give a celebration speech or pump his fist for the cameras. Classic Joey. But he was not done. He added the 250cc lightweight and the 125cc ultra-lightweight wins to complete his 3rd career TT hat trick. He is the only rider in TT history to achieve 3 hat tricks. And in the senior race that same week, on the final lap, the 48-year-old set the fastest lap he had ever recorded around the mountain course. 123,087 miles per hour. In over 2 decades of racing the TT, he had never been faster. The final race. 4 weeks later, Joey loaded his van and drove alone to Estonia. There was a small road race meeting on the Pirita-Kose-Klustrametsa circuit near Tallinn, a course that wound through pine forest with virtually no barriers or runoff. Joey had raced there before and enjoyed it. He was offered a hotel suite when he arrived. He declined and slept across the front seats of his van the same way he always did, the same way he had done before hundreds of races across 3 decades. That was Joey. Never any fuss, never any luxury. Just him, his bikes, and the road. On Sunday, the 2nd of July 2000, Joey won the 750cc and 600cc races. 2 wins in 1 day. In the afternoon, the weather turned and rain began to fall on the forest circuit. The 125cc race went ahead on a soaking wet track. Joey was leading on the 3rd lap when the rear of his bike stepped out on a flat left-hand corner where water had pooled across the surface. He corrected the slide the way he had corrected 1,000 slides before. But this time there was nowhere to go. There was no gravel trap, no grass verge, just pine trees at the edge of the track. The bike struck 2 trees and split apart. Joey hit a 3rd. He was killed instantly. He was 48 years old. The farewell. The Estonian government replaced its official website with a tribute page within hours of the news breaking. Across Northern Ireland and the motorcycle world, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Northern Ireland Television broadcast his funeral live. Approximately 50,000 mourners followed the funeral procession through the streets of Ballymoney to Garryduff Presbyterian Church. Bikers rode from across Europe to be there. Fans, neighbors, rivals, mechanics, people who had never met him but felt like they knew him. Catholic and Protestant alike, in a place where those divisions had defined a generation, where sectarian violence had torn communities apart for decades, his funeral was the one thing that united everyone. Because Joey never cared about any of that. He cared about motorcycles. He cared about his family. And he cared about helping people. That was it. 8 years later, his brother Robert was laid to rest in the plot beside him. Today, a bronze statue of Joey astride his Honda overlooks the Bungalow Bend on Snaefell Mountain. The 26th milestone of the TT course was renamed Joey's in his honor. In Ballymoney, the Joey Dunlop Memorial Garden stands alongside memorials to Robert and William, 3 members of one family who gave their lives to the sport they loved. Joey's Bar still opens its doors. And every year during race week, riders and fans travel from around the world to raise a glass. In May of 2025, the town of Ballymoney hosted Joey 25, marking a quarter century since his passing. 25 of his motorcycles were paraded through the streets by riders including Carl Fogarty, Jonathan Rhea, Ron Haslam, and Jeremy McWilliams. Arai released a 600-unit limited edition tribute helmet. His nephew Michael performed a tribute lap of the mountain course on a replica of the Honda SP1 that Joey rode to that incredible Formula One victory in 2000. Joey Dunlop once said he never wanted to be a superstar. He just wanted to be himself. He hoped people would remember him that way, and they do. They remember a man who raced with a yellow helmet, a red t-shirt, and a quiet heart. A man who slept in his van and worked on his own bikes, who drove alone into war zones to deliver food to children he would never meet again, who came back from injuries that should have ended his career, not once, but over and over, who set the fastest lap of his life at an age when most riders are long retired. Motorcycle racing has produced riders who were faster than Joey Dunlop. It has never produced anyone more loved. He was the king of the roads. He was your man. And there will never be another one like him. If this story hit you the way it hit me, subscribe and click the video on screen. I have got another one you are going to want to see.